Test, test, test. Happy Friday to each and every one of you guys that are tuned into the New Wave Real Talk podcast. Thank you for your time. It's going to be a very, very, very good show. Have an opportunity to do something that a lot of people, don't often get to do, which is to actually talk back to. It's been 10 years since I graduated from high school. And I have a unique opportunity to talk to these educators that played a very fundamental aspect into my life in getting me to where I am today. So obviously, we all know that the coronavirus is impacting schools now, which, we all knew that it was going to happen because nobody actually, I would say nobody, because our scientists, well, I should not say nobody, because our scientists are really trying to give us the information that we need, but our government either don't want to hear it or don't agree, one or the other. Or the third option is they just don't care. But so anyway, the educators that I'm going to be talking to are going to talk from a standpoint of an educator and answer some of these questions that we all have about sending our children back to school. So without further ado, let me get my banner up, and we're going to go ahead and get them to introduce themselves. Let's go ahead. So you guys, I can hear you now. So let's start with Dr. Glover. So Dr. Glover, give us a introduction as to who you are and how long you've been an educator.
My name is Tish Glover. I retired, I can't believe, 5 years ago in 2015, and I taught for 31 years. I taught 10th through 12th, chemistry and human anatomy, basically. And I am so fascinated with the science of everything, of course, with what's going on. And I hope that people will use that science to help the virus, help us get through the virus and everything get back to some sense of normalcy.
Right. Absolutely. Now let's go to my other guest, Mr. Marcus Riggins. Mr. Riggins, introduce you. And now this is the first time I think I've ever been allowed to say his first name. So I feel honored.
The honor is all mine, Ray. The honor is all mine. I'm a former educator myself. I worked along with Dr. Glover. I don't have as many years as Dr. Glover, but I retired for 26 years then. Former football coach. I was an English teacher for 5 through 12. My last 12 years was all high school. And then I retired as a program administrator for Atlanta Public Schools.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, both of you, for educating me and giving me some foundations to go out and tackle this world. So I appreciate that. And Dr. Glover, your sentiments about life and how it will eat you up if you're not prepared. I carry that every single day. So thank you for that.
Well,
all right. So
I hope it helped.
It did 100%. So let's just get into the conversation. My first question, and it's I'll pose it to Dr. Glover first, and then Mr. Riggins, you can answer it after. So do you think, given your tenure with Atlanta Public Schools, do you think that the public school systems will be able to follow the CDC guidelines for public schools?
Absolutely no. This past summer, as I told Mr. Riggins, I had the opportunity to keep my 10-year-old nephew for about 2 months. And he's a kid. He does not understand the concept of social distancing. To ask him to keep a mask on, he'll put it on, then he'll forget and start talking and take it off. Now, he's only in 5th grade, 10 years old. and high school kids will probably adhere to it a little better, but I think the little kids, they don't understand, and that's really asking too much of them, and it's asking too much of teachers to have to be responsible for 20 to 30 kids wearing masks and staying separated, because they aren't going to do either one of them.
Right. Absolutely. Mr. Riggins?
I totally agree with Dr. Glover. The issue is not so much so that trying to get kids acclimated to doing something that is not normal for them. It's human nature to want to interact with
Mhm.
any kind of, because we are a social structure based kind of creatures, and the concept of having not just little kids, but we're talking about young adults, teenagers that
Mhm.
are come primarily to school to not just to learn, but they also come to learn their social skills,
Right.
to learn their interactive skills. And you're asking a young person who is between 14 and 18 years old, to remember to always put a mask on, to remember to stay a certain amount of distances, make
Right.
sure that when you're speaking to do that. So I don't think it would have been, no matter whatever preparation you could have done, you could not prepare kids to be prepared to be disciplinarily social in this
Right.
our society. I just don't believe that.
Right. I've heard so many psychologists come out and mental health counselors, and they talk about the impacts that the COVID-19 is having on just what you said, the social skills, the ability to socialize. I mean, you got to think about those kids that are one child household, right? Their parents only had one kid. And when they come to school, their friends are their outlet, for them to have that social experience. So absolutely, I 100% agree. So let's talk about the actual CDC guidelines. Have you guys had an opportunity to kind of skim over them, or you kind of have an idea of what they were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, from my experience of graduating from Atlanta Public Schools, I went to Atlanta Public Schools all of my 12, K through 12. Now, what I remember was very crowded classrooms, very underfunded schools as far as resources. So where do the CDC think that these schools are going to get the monies to be able to appropriate the distance? I mean, because if you have a classroom of 25 children, a class roll of 25 kids, how can you, I mean, the rooms are only so big. So, how do we break that 25 into two different classes when you already stretch on the teachers that you have?
Well, I don't know about this one, but I think Doc can answer that. I'm gonna let Doc answer the first one. But 25 kids, I have not seen. I think Doc can attest to this. 25 kids inside a classroom. I have not seen that since '97. And before then, it was nothing out of the ordinary to have a classroom consisting of 27 to 32 kids in a class.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'll let Doc answer that one, because that one is a little bit. That one right there is more along the lines of a fable right there.
Right. And you're saying that the classroom count. You're saying that the classroom counts are way more than 25 students.
Oh, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Yeah. No question about that.
Well, that's the way schools are funded. There's a ratio, and there's I'm not going to get technical, but there's something called an ADA, the average daily attendance, and they and the first 9, you might remember, the first 9 days is when they level off. And they assign teachers based on the number of kids, and the ratio will be like anywhere from, like he said, from like maybe like 20. But high school is from 25 to 32 students, and if you got a class with 17 kids, they'll just cancel the class. They've done that many times. And that's how that works. That's why the first 9 days of school, they're so meticulous about the numbers of children who show up. That's why they would get so upset about the kids who came after Labor Day. Because that first assignment period was over, and that's when they lose teachers. And so the second thing is they don't have enough teachers. I mean, with the pandemic, that was always a shortage of teachers in certain critical areas.
Mm-hmm.
So the second thing, there's not enough, and the third thing, and there are so many teachers who are not going back. They're taking family medical leave or whatever. I've talked to 3 teachers in the past 2 weeks who said they were not going back because they have other underlying health conditions.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's gonna segue to my next question. Put yourself back in that position. I know in the studio you guys were I overheard you guys talking about your retirement years now and how it's just the best days of your lives. But let's try to take a break from that. And if you were an educator right now today, would you go back into those classrooms? And if and why? Whatever your answer is.
I would have to at this current time, no. I mean, because of my personal medical thing, what I know about science, I would say no. But I would be, and I am going to get out and help do some of the protesting. I think I'm going to go help the teachers in Gwinnett protest with the blowing the horns and everything.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You got to have the advocacy. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
For me, I'm kind of on the fence for me because, knock on wood, I do not have any kind of underlying health issues or anything else like that in this nature. But I am taking care of my last living parent, and he has that underlying health ratio, situation as far as it's concerned. So I have to always take that in consideration with anytime I leave my home. Making sure that I'm doing all the precautions so that way I won't bring that back to him and have him infected in any kind of way. I'm not so much worried about my health because I've been pretty much been active physically and as far as it's concerned. So I have no underlying issues. But in the sense of the matter, I can sympathize with a lot of educators because there's some educators I've talked to that I've kind of mentored along and they've gone through school and graduated and even went through the process and got certified, and then when this came about, it became a scary thought that they had to take a situation and think about, do I challenge myself to go and risk my life and my family's life to be able to pay off a student loan that I just opened up on. So, in a sense of the matter, I'm kind of like with Dr. Glover. I've had people that have thought about being educators almost all their life, and I've talked with them and have them actually shadow with me and everything else like that. And all of a sudden, they just said, this is just not worth it. I'm gonna have to change it up. I can't do it. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot, and that's one of my prepared questions. And it was basically what are your feelings on having to choose right now? A lot of teachers, educators, administrators are having to choose between a way of life financially or their own health, and I don't think that people are looking at that as an issue. I think that we are so caught up on the kids, but the educators are literally having to choose between, do I go to work and pay my bills and keep my house and keep my car and feed my children and all these things. But so I mean, what are your feelings on that? Like, what type of resolve would you want to see if you were an educator today? What would be something that make you as an educator today say, okay, I can go back into the classrooms? What is that thing for you, Dr. Glover? If you were in the classroom, what would that thing be?
A vaccine. We need a vaccine. I think that one thing that could happen is they could use like pods. I know in some communities, in my little 10-year-old nephew, when he goes back to Chicago, I think at his mom's office, they have a teacher who's going to work with, I think, 10 students. And they kind of have been self-contained. So I think that's one of the things we can do in the interim. But I personally think the schools really should not open up the way they were until after there is a vaccine, because schools are nothing but petri dishes.
Right.
It's too many people in too close contact.
Yeah. I agree.
I agree with Dr. Glover on that one. Definitely vaccinating into it a lot bit more. But I'm a little bit more political, somewhat. Uh, my response, coming from the athletic side of, the educational aspect of it,
Mhm.
while it's weather permits, if it's possible, utilize some of these stadiums and everything and putting tents up and having so many kids inside a certain amount of tents, and then having so many kids inside of actually in the school itself physically.
Mm.
I
Mm.
mean, kind of put it in a spread out situation. Then
Mhm.
as the weather changes, then you make provisions and everything. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's not unorthodox to see educational trailers put out on the school block, parking lot and everything else
Right.
like this. I
Right.
mean, we're talking about separation,
Right.
and then when it all boils down to it, to be honest with you though, is that the whole concept of education. I've said this from day one when my first 5 years of being an educator. You have to have the people who are the lawmakers and the government officials and everything else like that. You do not
Mhm.
see anyone else in those positions unless they're lawyers. Well,
Mhm.
in educators, we have an educational secretary who has no educational background whatsoever, but just
Mm.
she
Thank
studied
you.
telling the country to come back and worry about schools being open. But you have never been in the classroom. My advice, as far as is concerned, let her teach a fifth grade class for 2 days and see how she
Yes,
survived on that aspect of
yes.
it. Because my thought process is like this, and I think Doc can agree with me on this, is any educator would tell you it's not so much about doing the job or not having enough provisions or or the materials, because that's something that we've already put in our DNA that we have to supply for our kids. We work in what they consider now high risk school systems.
Mhm.
But we want to know that the people that are supposed to be in charge, are supposed to be looking out for the welfare of the kids, are educators too. Not
Right.
people who
Right.
are politicians or people who gives a substantial amount of donations to the so-called elected officials to be in this position. And this is
Mhm.
the problem that I think that starts right there. And then again, emphasizing what Doc says before, the science. This is about science. It has nothing to do with the social aspect. It has nothing to do with the physical aspect or having our kids back in school. Of course, we know our kids need to be back in school, but what good is having our kids back in school when not 2 days when they come start goes back to school, you have an outbreak of 30 kids already?
Right. Right.
That's ridiculous. That is completely ridiculous.
Right.
So that's my aspect of
Okay.
it.
No, you're 100%. I agree. Let's talk. Let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about what's going on in the Atlanta metropolitan area. You guys can help me out with this because I know you guys are probably a little bit more connected to education and the school boards and what's going on. But from my understanding, the Atlanta metropolitan school systems, I know for my daughter in Clayton County, they have agreed to go to a 100% virtual learning for the first semester. Um, do you think that virtual learning is the best alternative at this point?
Well, yes, at this time,
Mm-hmm.
unless you can do a model like Mr. Riggins was saying, where you have like the little pods, where you have, and I don't think right now the infrastructure has been set up. So the best model will be as he described, having like breaking the classes down, maybe having half reduce the class size by 50%. And then you can put like trailers up or use, just the, other grounds and put up other, other, but like
Shelter,
classrooms
yeah.
to keep,
Mm-hmm.
right, keep the kids separated. However, then it comes down to, like school, like you say, school systems are always strapped for cash and hiring the personnel and where are they going. And I don't know if you know this, but Mr. Riggins can tell you in certain disciplines, it is very hard to find teachers because there's always teacher shortages. If you want to always have a job, become a teacher because you'll always have a job, if you're in certain areas. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing. So in light of what we got, I think online is the best thing.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
now, last year I had an opportunity to work with a friend of mine from North Atlanta who
Mhm.
taught chemistry and physics and did it online. And I was very impressed with what I saw. I mean, he was able to connect with the students. I don't know. I guess it wasn't Zoom, but whatever platform they used was really wonderful. He could, had his boards and everything.
Right. Yeah, that was going to be Mr. Riggins. Do you want to answer that question, or
Well, I
more
agree.
to add?
I totally agree with Doc says. For this particular moment right now, definitely, online classes is the best thing. The issue is, I think that the problem with so much apprehensiveness when it comes down to this is that you do have parents that are afraid. We're going to call it for what it is worth, that are afraid of actually kind of walking with their child with this process, because it does require discipline. It does require that you have to be online for a certain amount of time, certain amount of assignments that has to be done as far as it's concerned, and making that commitment is not just the child, but it is also the parent or the guardian.
Yep.
So that becomes a issue where that is superseded past the child.
Right.
So this is where we're getting at, but it's the most feasible and conventional way of being able to maintain our kids. Now, the only problem that I have is that, getting the material, meaning by a laptop, internet access, to kids who do not have or may not have the income to be able to do this. Now, that's the only glitch that I have with it, but it's definitely the most smartest way to go right now.
Right. And that was one of my concerns. So, and that was, we're having a great conversation. It's flowing. And one of my sentiments is this: you have a lot of parents, some parents, I'm not going to say a lot, I don't want to get into statistics, but there are many people that are uneducated themselves, that cannot feasibly perform in that capacity as a teacher, even as a supplemental role in virtual learning. So the question to me that I've gotten a lot of times was, why are we forcing this reality of school because it's the conventional approach, but in some cases, in some households, virtual learning is not conducive to that child. So should we even be forcing schooling right now? Should we be focused on, which is what Dr. Glover said, a vaccination, a therapeutic? And should we just pause? Should we just pause school until these kids are able to get back into the classroom and effectively learn? What would be your comment to me on that? Whoever want to jump in.
Doc,
I think there's an interesting approach. I talked to a friend of mine who teaches special ed. The special ed teachers are back, and really kids who are high need like that, they can come. And I know, like, my nephew goes to Chicago Public Schools, and he brought his Chromebook, Google Chrome. So his mom said all the kids, I don't know what grade levels, but all the kids at his school in his grade level got Chromebooks. And then she said those who did not have internet access, I think they were given some kind of hotspot thing. I don't know if we have that here. I'm not sure how, but I know that APS set that up, because I know some children who go to middle school and they got I think they got Chromebooks too. But you're right. Some kids, if their parents are not able to help them, or their parents have their language issues, and the parents are not, they're just not able to do it. I think there's accommodations could be made for those kids to go in, like with the special ed kids. But the ones who have access to people who can help them, they could actually stay home until that, and that would help with the thinning out process too.
Well, I agree with you, Doc. I think that's definitely a good move, because that's exactly what the APS has done. Because I was just seeing that on the newsletter we normally get, that they got $40 million in the grants for computers and everything else like that to go towards that. Now, the thing that I have is a stickling point for me on this situation is that the question of, should the kids basically just call this a mulligan and just say, okay, well, we're not going to start back in class again until January, whatever. The problem I have with that again is that we have to look at human nature, and I think Doc, please step in. If I'm not correct, because I'll be the first one to say anatomy was not my strong suit in college. But the thing about it is that human nature and human interaction, we need to be stimulated, regardless of what the mind has to do. If the mind doesn't have something to make it interact, to make it actually think of other avenues or problem solving, if you want to call it. We call it critical thinking, but it's basically problem solving. When we get up from the time we go to bed to the time we wake up in the morning, we have things that we have to conquer to go to the next point, to the next spacing or the next level or to the next task. And if you do not set those type of things up in a young mind, then what happens to, and this is my opinion, they become stagnant. And that stagnancy becomes pestilence. And to me, from that, it becomes then it branches off into different avenues, from what the old folks say, old fashioned laziness to, to where you become complacent. And I just think that, it's a good thought. I think that, again, we can brainstorm this whole concept. I was thinking about this whole concept about that with parents not being comfortable teaching and everything else like that. And, you got college kids who are in education that you could probably, it could be worked out. They could probably do virtual teaching themselves to be that's virtual tutors or something like that or whatever, or reaching back into some of the former students who may be going to the feeder high school that they may be going to and having that set up for them, because we all know that if you're going to be an educator somewhat, you have to have some form of practicum behind you, and you have to have some forms of time. So, I mean, it's avenues, but it's about, again, it goes back to the top when we're talking about setting up these things and putting these things into place. Just like we're sitting here having this discussion. These things could be put into place well in advance before we got to this point to now here we are 2 days, a week or whatever out, and we're still struggling to find out how we're going to educate our kids. That's the issue. It is what it comes down to.
Right.
This summer, there was some virtual summer camps. My neighbor's grandchild went to a virtual summer camp. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think, of course, the child is here in Atlanta. And I think the people run the camp out of Denver and Boston, and it was wonderful. She said that he just got on the computer for 2 hours every day, and they would do activities. She'd have the computer set up, and it was awesome. And I saw that model, and I said, we need to do more of that. And hey, had we thought about it in time, we could have actually done that for some of the kids around here at a virtual, summer camp. And I think this child did really well in the summer. I think it's still going on.
Yeah, it is. It is, Doc. I remember. I saw that myself. It is going on.
Well, good. Well, that's good that we're seeing that, education and technology are bridging together. So we'll just see where it goes. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about what happened in Paulding County with the posting of the picture of the crowded hallway at the school where the female, the woman, the girl, the teenager that posted that picture talked a little bit about what led her to do that. So when you saw that picture, what was your first reaction to the picture, Dr. Glover?
I love this generation. I love these young people. And as I told Mr. Riggins, when the little girl said, she thought about Congressman John Lewis and she had to get into some good trouble. And first of all, the school is totally wrong. I mean, because and what the school, whoever legal people they had, they better get rid of them. First thing you learn in school law is that your rights, your constitutional rights, do not stop at the schoolhouse door, and they violated that child's First Amendment right. And then they further put the foot in the mouth when they got on the intercom, and they did that. The rule number one, at least to Mr. Riggins, we noted in APS, if you got something, you do not get on the intercom and say it, because you never know who is recording. APS are notorious.
Yes,
know some are notorious for recording on the intercom. So that school district, I just said this is not APS because we don't roll like that.
No. No. For me, Doc, I'm gonna be honest with you. It would put me in the mindset of Pharaoh. First lunch starting, and everybody trying to make it to that cafeteria, and make that quick run down to JJ's or whatever have you. That's the first thing that brought it to my mind.
Right.
But then, the second thing in my mind, it goes back to what I said before. We're talking about young adults.
Yes.
They are looking at interaction. They crave that. We crave that even as older we get.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I looked at that, and when they said what that child said, the first thing that put into my mindset is that I would think about the conversations of some of the veteran teachers like yourself, Doc, Mr. King, a couple of others, would have with students. And the first thing that we would always try to do was that we always encourage students to be able to speak what's on their mind, but do it in a respectful way and to do it in a certain way that it can be understood and not considered being negated as being belligerent or ignorant or anything else like that, but you're conveying your beliefs. Mm-hmm. And when you told that child right then and there over the intercom that you cannot do this. Now, mind you, now, on the same hand, you're telling these children that this is your school. You're supposed to take pride in your school. This is what your education. You control how you get educated and this, that, and the other. You're just giving this child a confused mixed signal as far as it's concerned. And second of all, what did they expect that was going to do when you're talking about kids have been out from school more than the normal time of the summer vacation? We're talking about almost 6 months. They have been running free and everything else, regardless of what this pandemic has done. Kids have been out there running free and doing what they wanted to do and enjoying their life. Then you tell them they got to come back to school. First bell rings and whatnot. What do you think them kids are going to do? Mm-hmm. They're going to come out of them classrooms like they are cage target looking at a 2-inch tape. Bottom line. And from what I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, I did not see not one educator or one part of the school personnel out in those hallways controlling that traffic. It was not disorderly. I didn't think it was disorderly. It looked like normal traffic that you would see in a high school. But the issue still stands is that you cannot control. That's like trying to control a waterfall. You cannot control a waterfall. You can direct it. You can maybe guide it to where you might want it to go ahead and spring off. But you cannot sit down and inspect when you don't sit in place some form of dismissal, because there's no way in the world you're talking about that. That looked like a regular dismissal from one class to me.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion about it.
Well, I'm happy to report that Hannah suspension was lifted. So she will be going back to school on Monday.
I tell you what, if that was my child, I think you could expect a lawsuit because that child's civil rights were violated. Her civil rights were violated.
Yeah, it was. It very much was. And see, as an administrator, from my aspect of it, one, we would have never suspended that child. We would have, if anything, the worst case scenario. And Ray, even though my memory serves, you've never been in my office before.
Right.
Is that and which is, it's a shame. I hate to say that, only way I knew good kids when they graduated. I only knew the bad kids whenever they came to my office. But we would have I would have sent that child home with to have a conference with the parent to explain to them what is proper procedure and going from there. Suspension would have never been inside that equation because you're opening a Pandora's box when you're talking about something of that nature like that. And then you're not just opening up that child's mind to what what is their civil rights now, but we're talking about any other child that may feel the same way. Because trust me, she's not the only one that probably felt the same way.
Right.
I mean, this again, you're stifling at the same time you're trying to encourage children, well, I should say young adults, to be productive citizens in their society. We're talking about their society, not talking about ours. We're talking about their society, because the society, when they graduate, is how they mold it. And what that has to do is that you cannot tell the child 1 minute, go out, be active. We see something, stand up, speak out, everything else. What Congressman Lewis would always say. And then you turn around and you punish this child for doing what you've been teaching. That's just crazy. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I think President Obama summed it up best. He talked about all the young children. He said, these are John Lewis's children. And when she said good trouble, I said, okay, this is one of John Lewis's children.
That's right. I mean, when she said that, I'll be honest with you, Doc, it put me in the mind being right there. Now, I went to Howard University. I know Lafayette Square very well. And when he stood right there in front of Black Lives Matter, that right there stuck in my mind. And I could not believe the pride when that young lady said that. That's what we as educators look at when we see former students or students of ours that go on to make their mark. That's pretty much like what you're doing, Ray. That makes us proud, because that lets us believe that no matter how many kids we didn't have, not this one didn't fall through the cracks. That's just awesome.
That's right. That's right.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Well, I think this is a perfect opportunity to put a button on this segment. And I've actually ran over the time that I've committed with you guys. But the conversation was absolutely amazing. And I want to thank you again for coming and sharing some time with me on the New Wave Real Talk platform.
And thank you so much. Thank both of you so much.
Oh, Doc, it was great getting back with you. And Ray, again, I told you in the beginning of the show, I'm proud of you, son. You're doing great things. Doing great things.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely welcome you guys back anytime. If the topic fits, you're definitely going to get a call from me or a text or a message or something. It's like, hey, come back on the platform. You're comfortable now. You're comfortable now. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from educators from the Atlanta Public School System's former educators. They gave a raw and honest commentary about their true feelings about COVID-19 and the schools. So I'll be right back with our next segment of the show. Y'all don't go anywhere. I'll see you in a second. Hey, what's up, family? I'm Raymond, and thank you so much for your support of New Wave Real Talk. As I said before many times, this channel is for us, by us, everything Black culture. So if you're liking what you're hearing on the show, let me know by dropping a comment, smash the like button, and let me know. Also, if you're watching the show and you want to be a featured guest on the show, hit me up. The email is in the description, wherever you're finding this video, and let's bring you on. If you got something positive to share regarding Black culture or just culture in general, you're welcome. You're welcome here. So know that. And I'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Thank y'all for hanging out with me this Friday evening. We have some, if you're just getting here, I'm telling you, man, you got to go back and watch the first part of the show. It was amazing. But let's talk about this other topic. Black is king. I'm rocking the melanin shirt for all y'all. Y'all go and copy y'all melanin shirts. Man, I love this shirt. I love what's going on right now in black culture, in the black community. Beyonce, the queen bee. If you have not watched Black is King, go and watch it. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it. I don't want to give any spoilers or anything for people who have not watched it. But I'm just going to give you my commentary on what I felt watching it. Like, literally, it's a musical. And in reality, it's nothing but if I had to sum it up, it's like a video album. So like, it's literally like this album that she's produced, but that whole thing is a continuous video. But I mean, the tracks, the music, I felt a sense of pride by watching it. Like, I know that's probably crazy, to say, but I really felt connected to where I come from, where my people come from, our ancestry, and being proud to stand up and say that, being proud to say that Black is king, and that you have to, look to your ancestors to understand where you come from, and that your history is your future. And so my hat is off to Beyonce for that beautiful production of Black is King. If you have not watched it, it's worth watching. I paid my $6.99 to Disney Plus to watch it the right way. However you decide to get in there to watch it, do what you got to do. But I thought it was beautiful. And I think Beyonce is like awesome for even producing it. I mean, it was wonderful. So that's all I'm gonna say. Black is King. Go watch it. It will make your life a little bit better. And you'll have a little fun while doing it. And I would definitely say it's very inspirational for kids to watch it. And I see why she collaborated with Disney, because our kids are our future. Our kids are our future. I'll say it again. Our kids are our future. Our black kids are our future. We have to train them to know their history and to know that they are more than people that were put into slavery and killed by white people or other people that look like different people. Other people, okay? Black people are more than that, okay? And so by watching Black is King, you get connected to that. All of the crap about Beyonce and it being, demonic and all that, listen, man, get that jealousy off me. For all y'all who watched it, y'all know what I'm talking about. Get the jealousy off me. Don't come at me with that jealousy. You know what I'm saying? So go and watch Black is King. It'll, I think you'll really love it. It was awesome. So also, for all of you guys that are wondering, today is the deadline for the second stimulus deal to be passed. So right now is going to be very crucial for the United States government to get it together. There are so many people today. This is probably the first payroll that you have gotten, and you did not get your extra $600. So it is about to get real fast. So Congress needs to get in line and make it happen. And I don't even blame the president singly, because this is a situation where Congress has to get out of their behinds and make it happen. It made no sense to me to hear that Congress actually went on a long weekend last week with this, not being solidified. I think last Friday, it officially expired, the extended unemployment benefits. So now the second stimulus bill that they're trying to get done needs to happen today. Based on my last research, and I don't have a producer on this show. Maybe my next podcast, I'll have a producer that can talk to me in my ear and say, Raymond, yeah, They passed it. So for right now, y'all gonna have to go and research yourself and see if that second stimulus deal was passed. I hope it was passed because so many people are about to feel the wrath of this virus. I repeat, so many people are about to feel the wrath of this virus if the United States government do not offset the destruction. And, you know, the conversation was, hey, why are we incentivizing people to stay at home versus going to work? And I would say to those people, hey, 160,000 people have died from this virus. So you're doggone right. People need to stay at home to you know, until the virus has been contained and a therapeutic has been developed and a vaccination has been developed. But I talk on my YouTube channel and other things that I do in my life because I don't believe to be one-dimensional. You have to have more than one thing that you're doing in our society today. Because things like the pandemic happened. So if you were doing just one thing and that one thing went away, you know, so word to the wise, get some hobbies, find a way to monetize it and make it happen. But the second stimulus deal is very important for a couple reasons. Number one, the raft you're gonna start feeling the impacts of this coronavirus if they do not extend the second stimulus deal, because that second stimulus deal is tied to more than just the $1,200. It's tied to the extended unemployment benefit. It is tied to the eviction termination or moratorium. So you technically, in some states, from the federal government, you could not be evicted from your property. That is now gone. So there's no protection for you there. And then the extended unemployment benefit, the $600 extended or on top of what the state gives you. That helped so many people stay afloat throughout this time. So definitely you guys do your research and figure out if that deal has been reached. I hope it has because, again, we need it. We need it, man. We are right now in a time that is not necessarily unprecedented because everybody that has a brain can research what a recession is, okay? A brain and Google. If you want to know what a recession is, put those two things together and you'll find out. Right now, well, I think a week ago, the Fed released a report that said that the United States government GDP, gross domestic product, had shrunk by 32.9%. So what that means is the economy in the United States government, so the money in circulation, stopped by 32.9%. That's a lot, okay? And it's going to shrink even more if the economy is not stimulated, if money is not given, because the United States government runs off of, or our whole existence is consumer-based. So our economy works off of consumer activity. When you buy things, it circulates and stimulates the economy. It goes from your hand to the store, and then from the store to the employees, and then the employees to their families, and then it goes back to the grocery store. So that is the economy, okay? When that money stops being circulated and people start to hold their money because they don't have a lot to enough to circulate it, to spend it willy-nilly, then you see the shrinking in the economy. So where we are now, if the United States government do not pass this second stimulus deal, you're going to actually feel the wrath of the recession, right? Right now, technically, we are in a technical recession based on the numbers. Based on statistics, we are technically in a recession. But because the government has been stimulating the economy in certain ways by doing the extended unemployment benefits and the moratoriums on evictions, keeping people from being put out. All of these different things have put pretty much a Band-Aid on the economy. But if the government do not go ahead and sign that second stimulus deal, that package, the Band-Aid is going to get ripped off. And guess what happens when the Band-Aid get ripped off? You know, it takes a little bit of the scab off, and then it starts to, you know, you start to bang it up against things, and it start to bleed and start to, you know, you stop the healing process. That's where we are right now. So hopefully the United States government don't fail us. The Congress and the president, don't fail the American people and really put us in a recession. Because if they don't sign it, if this deal doesn't get extended indefinitely, then yeah, our bets are off, So that's pretty much the show, ladies and gentlemen. I thank y'all for hanging out with me. Also, I got a couple announcements today. So this is episode 17. So I've been doing this for 17 weeks. Actually, I think 15, because I think I did 2 in 1 week. So the end of August, New Wave Real Talk podcast will be no more. Okay. So definitely hang out with me until the end of August. I was going to say March. To the end of August. We got 3 more shows to do. And yeah, bigger and better things are coming, though. Bigger and better things are coming. I think that you're going to see something maybe called New Wave Media Group. And in New Wave Media Group, you may see multiple podcasts. So bigger things are coming down the pipeline for New Wave Real Talk. Thank you for the support. Also know that you can listen to us on Spotify, Google, and Apple. Anywhere you go, all the time. Okay? So I'll see y'all next week. You guys take care. Be well. Go and check out Black is King. Keep your children out of schools and make sure your congressperson and your constituency make their voice heard and demand that the second stimulus is passed so that we can stay out of the recession. I'll see y'all next week. Y'all take care.